Welcome to the final stretch of our Fire Emblem 11 Hard 5 0% Girls playthrough, presented by Untitled and Mekkah.
Hi.
This is the penultimate video, and it is a race to the finish, or more like a warp to the finish, because that's the implement that we're going to be using to reach the finish line. These four chapters are all going to be completed in one turn, with liberal use of the warp staff. So we did a little bit of deployment shenanigans here, because the units that we're going to be using in these four chapters are particular to each of the chapters, and this chapter also has a really strange unit deployment formation. Your units kind of start spread out across the map, and we need to compress our warp users and our warp targets to like the center of three groups. So that's why I did the strange deployment arrangement without going into the map, because deploying units in certain positions forces them into certain starting formations on the map. It also makes it easier in subsequent chapters so that I have to do less prep menu work in order to do whatever it is that I need. We also reclassed Wendell back to Bishop so that he can use Warp, and Samson went back to Hero because he needs to help us kill this boss. This boss is really tough. He is almost as tough as Camus from the previous chapter in that he's really fast. He has 19 speed, so he doubles almost every single one of our characters except for Samson. The entire reason why we forged -1 weight onto the Poleax is for this boss, because Samson gets weighed down by the Poleax without the -1 weight, and he would be doubled otherwise. We theoretically could try to kill this boss with a Wing Spear critical, but I prefer reliable strategies, and so Samson it is. Biblical Samson was strong enough to one-round KO everyone with an Ass's Jawbone, but Shadow Dragon Samson is not quite that strong, still sort of important for this strategy. We also sold a couple of our forged weapons in the prep menu because we're not going to be using them anymore. They will join the ranks of the Corleone in the graveyard of forged weapons in this run, but they are not going to be the last ones to go. We have one remaining use on the Glue Factory, and that is also going to be expended here. So RIP Glue Factory, and also sort of RIP Caeda, because without the Glue Factory she is not going to be able to do much. The last side objective on this map is to visit the Secret Shop with Minerva. She has to buy 3 Spirit Dusts here, and we are going to use them on one of our characters later on in order to facilitate an endgame strategy. So that is it for Chapter 21. Let's move on to Chapter 22.
So Chapter 22 is the dracoknight map of this game. I think almost every Fire Emblem game has one. Before we can really get into the dracoknights though, we're gonna have to talk about Bola, because he's been around, but he's kind of a quiet dude. I'll let you on a little secret. He is actually a raging drug addict. He's gonna take 4 Spirit Dust right at the nose to increase his magic. Another guy who's been around for quite a while is Riz. After Chapter 14, we kind of stopped deploying him, but now he's been back for at least one chapter, and he's been warping people left and right, so that's very helpful. In this chapter, we have to deal with Mekkah. He's sitting on the gate, preventing us from seizing. He's my nervous brother, so killing him is kind of a sad occasion. Thankfully, he has wings, so he doesn't get any bonuses from that gate. That makes him easier to kill, and so does his 3 resistance, which is very low. But he is carrying an IO'd shield, and that prevents us from getting effective damage on him with the Arrow Spade or Excalibur. So instead, we're going to be using Linde and her Aura Tome, as well as the Volt Tackle, which we're actually breaking this chapter. Kind of unfortunate, but it has to happen. And after they've chipped away at him, we can finish him off with Tiki, because she's very accurate, and she's also our most damaging physical unit. This boss skill is made even more reliable by the support bonuses that we're deploying. We've got Marth, who is giving a support bonus to Beck, and then both Minerva and Caeda are giving a support bonus to Jake, and both of those are making the Volt Tackle more accurate. So that is helpful. You can visit the village in this chapter to get the Starlight Tome if you have spears, and it's good for story reasons, but it's optional and you don't need it to beat the game. So instead, we're just gonna seize this Marth right on top of the gate and seize. And that wraps up Chapter 22, and let's just move on to Chapter 23.
Chapter 23 is the second and final occasion on which we have to face off against one of the villains in this game, the Dark Pontifex Skarneth. And you may recall him from back in Chapter 15, where he ineffectually tried to chase Marth through the desert, and we just said, "What's up, Garneth? We're just going to seize the gate that you left virtually unattended using this here item called a Warp Staff." Garneth seems to have a penchant for playing games, and the game here is that you have to figure out which one of the 3 Garneths on the map is a real one. But we're going to say screw that, we don't have time for your shenanigans, because Marth has gone for too long without wearing his pants, and that is a serious business. The real Garneth drops a Falchion, which is a sword that Marth can use to duel the Shadow Dragon Medius, but Marth is so weak that why bother doing that? He is not really after all. Once more, there is a genetic bishop on the Seize Point, and the boss strategy for this chapter involves promoting Hardin. He will be the final promotion of this game, because he would have been too slow to be useful for chapter 20, but he is fast enough for this boss who is weighed down by the Thoron Tome. Hardin is a paladin, and paladins have the highest resistance base of all promoted classes, and Hardin is also pretty bulky himself, so he can easily survive an attack from the boss. He's not necessarily needed here, but he is needed for the next chapter, and it just helps with the menuing a little bit if I use Hardin incidentally as a paladin for this chapter, so I wouldn't have had to reclass like Palla for this chapter, and then change it back to dracoknight for the next one. So Hardin can do a decent chunk of damage to the boss with the Silver Lance, and Tiki can finish him off with the Divinestone. Julian was warped to one of the chests to pick up the small bullion worth 10,000 gold that will be used on the forge in the next chapter, and we can wave goodbye to Garneth at least for now. I will hand this off to Mekkah for chapter 24.
Chapter 24 takes us to the land of the Manichees, and with us is now Alice, Marth's sister. They are finally reunited. And Alice is yet another user of the amazing Warp Staff, so that is going to be very helpful to have around. For reclassing, Hardin has been wanting to join the Air Force, but couldn't because of his unpromoted status, and now that he's promoted, he will take his chance to do it. Caeda will gladly give him her dragon, because she broke her glue factory and she feels sorry for all the horses that she's killed with it. So she wants to spend some time getting closer to her horse again and exercise some remorse. Which means there's a dragon left over for Hardin to use. This boss is going to be very difficult to kill. His name is Semsel and he's very powerful. Think of like Camus if he hit on your resistance and couldn't attack at 2 range. Fortunately, he is weak to Tiki's Divinestone, and that means that Tiki, even at her base level, does an enormous amount of damage. And we've already known Tiki as a boss killer for the past 2 chapters, and it's only going to get more insane from here. But she doesn't quite want it KO, so we need some people to chip in with that really strong Javelin force that we just made. The Boom Spear is not strong enough to do this. We actually need the +6 might, and we need the damage bonus from A-rank lances on both Palla and Hardin, who are the ones who are going to be chipping in. They can do this because the map layout is kind of strange. You can just fly to the gate and fight the boss on turn 1 if you want, which saves us some warp use. We're also going to be warping Julian to the shrine to get the Arm Staff. This is a staff that only Alice can use, and what it does is it revives a unit, which is very unique. It doesn't happen often in Fire Emblem that you get to escape the permadeath, but there it is, and we're going to make use of it for sure. We're also going to be spending another warp to get Caeda to the secret shop, because at Boa's request, she's going to buy an armor scroll, because Boa thought it was some new kind of drug that he wanted to try out. Turns out it's not as exciting, but he does need it for the final chapter strategy, so there is that. What we could have done instead of chipping at this boss and then killing him with Tiki is use a triangle attack with Palla, Catria, and Est. Triangle attack is much more reliable, because when Palla, Catria, and Est surround an enemy and one of them attacks, the attacker will get a guaranteed hit and a guaranteed crit, so you don't have to worry about missing or anything. But Donan didn't think of that in time, so instead we have this to work with, and it works as long as all your hits connect. So there is that. And now there's just a bunch of really strong and impossible to deal with Manichees standing there being pretty useless as Marth gets ready to seize the gate. So yeah, that's chapter 24. We're going to move on to the final chapter.
See ya!